Let's go over how I would loop your character here. So here's the video that you have, right? Um, what I did is I used this little button here. This is called region of interest to kind of just draw a box around the thing that I need because I don't need this other object over here. And then go up to composition and crop comp to region of interest. So here I have that. I'm just going to move to the ones that I moved on to here. I then make this bar shorter because I don't need this loop to be this long. I found that this loop worked fine at this direction, right? I drew a shape layer that's going to add as a track mask. And so how you make a shape layer is you just grab the shape tool and draw your head, right? So what you could do is, turn down the opacity here, zoom in, let me show you what's going on. Press T for opacity, turn this down, and so you can resize this to be exactly the size of your head in this case. I'm doing this to get to add it as a mask, right? And I'll move on to this one is where I did it, I think. Yeah, I did it here. Turn this off for a second to show you what's going on. So then I make this face layer, I make it a track matte right here. So you track matte it to that shape that you just had it. So the shape has to be on top of the face, the eyeballs, the nose, the mouth. Here's the shape, right? Here's what it looks like. And then once I click on this, and if you don't see this, click on this switch right here to get to the track matte, TRKMAT. And it should be set to none, of course, to begin with. So it looks like this, right? And I'm going to click on this guy and say alpha matte to that. And then what I did is I kind of just looked at this loop and saw and just kind of mimicked what's going on down here and saying, okay, when this leg is here, this face will be here. And so I'm just animating position of this face across. And you can see how the track matte works. It works like that, right? And then so you have a loop, right? And I play this, and I think it looks fine for what we're doing. My imagination is that the face is here, and then it's spinning behind it in the back, and then you have your bow tie here. Looking at your project, you might want to have the bow tie separate because I know it flies off into space, so you might, for one of them, want to turn this off. And so you could just, of course, turn that off if you don't want that on this one. All right. And then I exported this, right? And I exported it, and then I brought that export into After Effects into another composition, right? Here it is. My problem that I thought about was that these guys, there's white paper everywhere, right? And so I thought about multiplying it. I had to change the colors because it was like a cream color, and so the cream doesn't work like multiply does. And then also there's so many light colors, like when they pass over each other, that multiply function won't work too well. And there might be one that does work, but not that I can remember in terms of what we want to do, where we want to have it show up and block whatever's behind it, right? So what I did is I went back to this one, and I added this effect that's going to key out this cream. And so when you do that, you don't want to use, let's see, where's my effect controls? You don't want to use key light. Key light is good for these bright colors. It's not good for these cream colors. What I used was linear color key. So I went to effect. On the actual video, I went to keying and I grabbed linear color key. And then this comes up, you grab the eyedropper tool, you click on this, let's just do that from scratch here. Yeah, I'll go to reset, click on the eyedropper tool, you click on this side of the image, and this will show you what it looks like. And if I turn off this, you can see, let's see here. Oh, it's not on. There we go. So you can see right away that there's some bleeding in of this gray, and so I'll show you how to fix that. Let's change the composition settings so you can see there you go. So you can see there's some bleed out there. So if you like that, you can keep it. If not, what you can do is you can decrease the softness. So this matching softness, you can decrease that, and you can see you can get rid of some of that. And then I export this. Here's how you export for alpha. I go to export, add to render queue, and then click on lossless, click on QuickTime, and then you want to change this channels to be not just RGB, but RGB plus alpha. It's going to make a larger file, but that's what you want. And then hit OK. And then I typically call it something like, in this case I called it, I think, alpha chem loop. So that implies that it has an alpha. This is what it is, and then it loops for me is what I called that, and then render that out. Right? So I already rendered that out. I don't need to do that. And then I brought this guy in here, and so now this guy, now that it's been keyed out, it can pass in front of each other without any issues, and so we're ready to go. All right, so let me turn off these back ones, and you can start animating these around. So for starters, let me make my composition longer. We're gonna go, I'm recording, am I? Yes, good. Let's see here. Whatever, how long you wanna make it. You can always make it shorter. And you can always put it back onto this sort of gray, cream paper. I just chose under composition settings, like chose a pale yellow that matches that color of the paper. And so it should look just like you kind of drawn. And so now you'll see that for starters, I have this longer composition, and you'll see that this loop is only this long. So I'll show you how to make this loop last forever. You come up here, we're in the actual project window, right click on it, interpret footage main, and we're gonna change at the very bottom here how many times it loops. So it'll loop 100 times. And now I can expand this out, right? And so now this guy's going to loop forever like that, or for 100 times at least. And you can make that however long you want. And now when you drag and drop these in here, they'll be that long, right? So that one I had to like do a slip edit. If you just bring it in after you set the loop time, it'll do that automatically. And so you can have duplicates now, right? And you can have different angles and sort of, you can also, so right now they start and they spin at the same time. But if you offset this on the timeline, they can spin at different times. So now they're spinning at different times. They don't look exactly the same, right? And then you can start moving these around. You can either just do positioning, right? So open up P, move it off camera, right? Scrub forward, move it through camera. And then I would use these Bezier curves are great because they can give a nice kind of feeling like it's doing that, right? You can also orient along a path. So if you, I'm going to put him right there, and then I'm going to go up to, oh, it's a good question. I always forget where that's at. We need to go to transform and auto orient. So yeah, I have this one animating, and I want it to animate along this path at this point. So I right click, go to transform and auto orient along a path. And then it's going to do a little weird thing, and then I could just rotate this to be like, no, I want you to follow the path this way, and it should follow that path, right? So you can see that it kind of follows that archway, right? And it looks like I need to move him a little bit up, so because he's not off camera completely, so I'll move him off like that. And right, you can really swing it out, and really swing it out, whatever you want to do, right? And so now he really kicks through. You can also start playing with scale. So this one maybe is smaller, right? And it can be like that. And so yeah, like this idea that they're all in this bath of molecules together might look really cool. It could also, of course, position through. And then what you can also do is you can add a nice like blur effect. So I'm just going to go up to effect with this back one selected. And I would just personally just add a blur to it. So you can add a Gaussian blur or a lens blur rather than setting up a camera and setting up a three-dimensional space. So if I set up a Gaussian blur and just blur this up a little bit, right? Now it's going to look like I have a camera, right? So this one's in focus because it's where my depth of field one, and that one isn't. It's going to be really cool. And you could have a lot of these coming in and coming out, kind of hanging out, whatever you want as you do a little voiceover, right? And I think that should be it. So the same thing will carry over for the other one, but positioning, scaling, blurring is going to give a really cool effect. And again, just grab it, Control D duplicates it, and then you can just move it around, right? So you can have multiple guys. Press P for position. Animate that over here. And I don't know how long you want to make the scene or whatever, but this is kind of the idea, is how I would work. Let's take a look at that real quick. Right? you can kind of imagine, yeah, you can create this scene of these multiple molecules, maybe some really close, some really far away, and just increase the blurriness, right? So if you decide, hey, I want this one to be even smaller in scale, you could increase that blurriness. Right? And you could, of course, also animate scale, so like things could come closer, but definitely do a lot of this sort of occlusion where something is in front of something else. That's going to make it feel like, oh, we're really in a space. All right, should be it. If any questions, let me know. Thanks.